Hello, everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. And my guest tonight is someone that I have admired all my life. Suzanne Braun Levine is a woman who has cared about women, had a passion for women all her life. She was the first editor of Ms. Magazine, and all of her life she has followed the transitions that women have gone through in their lives. Now she's thinking about women over 50 and that midlife transition that we make. Suzanne, I'd like to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
It's really great to have you here. We've got a community, 60 and Me, about 33,000 women now, over 60. And, we're all trying our best to reinvent our lives and make sense of this second adulthood, as you call it. And one thing we talk about a lot is the decades that we've lived through. All of us have lived through amazing times in history. And I'd like to ask you, what is the decade that has shaped you the most?
Definitely my 50s. There is no question. Not only personally, but in terms of what was going on for women when I was in my 50s, which now is a little ways in the past. And it definitely from here looks like the very best. Mainly because in my 50s, I just got a grip on myself. I suddenly found that I could say no, that I could alienate people and the world wouldn't come to an end, that my mission in life wasn't to understand and wait on everybody that I loved, and that I was entitled to be a little weird, a little disagreeable, a little selfish. And that was extremely exciting. And as I've written about, because it was such a revelation to me, I call it the fuck you 50s. Because that whole attitude of you can't bully me. I know who I am and what my place in the world is. And I'm in charge of me.
That's exactly what a lot of the people in the community say when you ask them to describe themselves. It's, quirky, it's adventurous, it's audacious, all those words. But, it seems to me like, that's a lot to do with dealing with aging, too, that when you come to grips with who you are and you don't care what other people think, that somehow your age then becomes irrelevant.
But I think it works both ways. I think becoming older and becoming irrelevant to society, which is a big problem we have to deal with,
it's true.
But it liberates you because you're not going to be the pretty girl in the room. You're not going to be the one who used her coquetry to get a business deal. So you have to find and they turn out to be other more profound qualities to navigate the world. So I think, ironically, menopause is supposed to be the end of the world for women because we're no longer able to perform the one function some people think we should be performing. But now we're on our own. We are on our own. And actually, it's interesting. The whole hormones play a big part in this burst of energy, what Margaret Mead called postmenopausal zest. But the loss of estrogen and the smoothing out of our monthly cycle makes it much easier to deal with the world in a consistent way, because whereas for all those years we'd build up stress and get ready for our period, and then we'd be a little wired, and then we'd go down a little, and then it would start building up again. The roller coaster, and it's a hormonal, emotional roller coaster, and that's gone. So your mood evens out in a way that makes it much more attractive to explore new things.
So don't you think that what happens then too, though, is you get this other, with that clarity of mind, you get this ability to want to reinvent parts of your life. You get that kind of focus. I find, this determination. So we focus on three things in the community: staying healthy, being financially secure, and driving independence, whether that's travel or writing or whatever you want to do. So with all of your experience with women, because I know you've got so much background to pull on, what would you say would be the first priority of those three?
Well, the truth is, unless your finances are under control, none of the others are available.
Yeah.
The practical concerns have to be the ground, the basic starting point. You have to be financially safe, and then you have to be healthy. There's no question that if you aren't managing your health, all the other options won't be available. And I have to say, because this is my latest discovery, that one of the most important ingredients in good health for women over 50 is having girlfriends. And this has been a real revelation to me. I always knew that I loved my girlfriends and that we laughed and had a wonderful time. I didn't really understand that this is like taking a vitamin, that a lot of gerontologists are beginning to think that first of all, if you don't have girlfriends, the possibility that you are going to age in a healthy way is almost off the table. But if you do have girlfriends, and the whole process of enjoying your girlfriends and feeling safe with them releases a hormone. And I keep coming back to these interesting hormones called oxytocin, which is known as the cuddle hormone. But it reduces stress. And a lot of scientists are beginning to think that one of the reasons we live longer than men is because we have these regular doses of stress-reducing oxytocin from our girlfriends.
Well, and I'm glad you raised this, because it was my next question, which was, of course, you've written a book on this subject. You've got to have girlfriends. I think it's the post-50 posse, you call it, which is, to me, so accurate. And I think that's, shown by our community, for one thing. Can you have virtual oxytocin? Through hugs over it, because I feel like in our community we help each other through the troubles. You see the comments coming, have you tried this, and hang in there. And I wonder if have you thought about that?
Well, it certainly is something women do for each other.
Yes.
And I think we need to hug each other physically occasionally, or at least hug somebody. But certainly what we do for each other online has made a difference since the beginning of the women's movement. One of the early areas of rebellion among women was knowledge about our bodies and information about health.
Right.
And it was not necessarily online, but it was the sharing of that kind of information that made a big difference. Our bodies, our cells, which came out in 1972. It's hard to remember that when we were born, our mothers were knocked out. They were knocked out until the doctor decided it was okay for them to wake up. And then they put on what I still remember, a bed jacket. Do you remember a bed jacket? It's like a little...
Oh, yes, little sweaters with
thing that you were supposed to put on to receive visitors when you were in the hospital.
Gosh.
So the whole notion of participating, even in childbirth, is part of how we have taken charge of our lives.
I've spoken to a couple of neuroscientists, just because we're so interested in brain health, and they've absolutely supported what you've just said, that social connections are so important to brain health. And, brain health, body health, it's all connected. And I think this idea, maybe you could talk a bit more about it, this second adulthood that women are now have in front of them. I mean, what are the opportunities that you see for us in the next, and I love the fact that we're midlife at 60. That sounds great. But what's ahead, do you think, for us?
Well, what's great is that we are the first generation to have this opportunity. And therefore, that's another reason we have to stick together, because we are exploring it together. Nobody has the answers. We have to keep each other posted on how it is for each of us. Sure. But what is important to understand is that, everybody says, oh, well, we're living longer. We're living 25 years longer. And we tend to think, oh, that means I'm going to get 25 years at the end. But that's not it. The 25 years is a new wedge in the middle between 50 and 75. That is a new life experience. And it's a total blank slate. And it's because we are healthier, we are more financially sophisticated, we're more experienced in dealing with the world. In that respect, we're braver, we're more adventuresome, and we know how to help each other. So second adulthood is really a new concept in women's lives. And our daughters are going to have a whole different experience. Yeah, totally. So in a way, we are a one-off generation, because once we've defined this period, it's going to be just what people understand life to be. So it's very exciting. Our generation has really reformed every experience that we have gone through.
Yeah, I know Jane Fonda talks about this as the third act, and that we're the first women in history to actually be living in that third act. And it actually raises an interesting question about relationships with men and sexuality and dating, because I think the opportunity is there now for us in our 50s and 60s, but it isn't the same as when we were 20 and 30. And so we can't have the same expectations. And I'd like could you give me your insights and your comments on that intimacy in this next third act or second adulthood?
Well, that was my last book, as you know, How We Love Now. And talk about intimacy after 50. And this same expectations business is exactly where the good news comes, because if you think of the expectations we had, they were all kind of externally defined. Certainly, I was I just absorbed from the culture. Nobody ever said it to me, that you had to find a man who was taller, older, richer, smarter, more successful than you, in order basically to give you a life.
You got lost in that kind of that relationship.
Was how you had an interesting life, was to marry an interesting man. And now, as Gloria Steinem said many years ago, we're becoming the men we wanted to marry, which means that we can marry or have sex with or do whatever we want with so many more and varied types of men. And I interviewed women for that book and discovered, I was really surprised, that while a lot of women aren't having as much sex as they would like, and while a lot of women are finished with sex altogether, there is a significant group of women who are having the best sex of their whole lives. And when you think about it, that's not a surprise, because we are uninhibited now. We know what we want. We're ready to ask for it or demand it. And certainly in terms of relationships with men, I think all of these changes come into play.
I think a lot of women would just ask the question, though, where are these great men to even experiment with? Because, it's really hard. And I was chatting with a dating coach about this, and, he was saying that basically women have become so strong that they, as you said, know exactly what they want. And men, he called them wimps. He said men can be wimps, that you've got to go for what you want. Like you just said that. If you know what you want, go for it. And don't be defined by a man. If you want, just go for it, which I think is good advice.
But there's one group that is certainly worth looking into, which is younger men. Because a lot of younger men aren't afraid of strong women. They've been raised by strong women. And they are probably as anxious to find a no strings attached relationship as many women are. And since a woman comes at this relationship without the expectation of richer, taller, older, there's a lot of potential there for just having a good time, if not having the love of your life. But in terms of the love of your life, I do think the internet makes a big difference in terms of being able to reach out, because we're looking for new kinds of people. It makes it possible to just extend the universe. I've just written a blog about this because I have a friend who is desperate to meet men, and she keeps saying, "Why don't you fix me up? Why don't you find me a man?" And I really can't. But I see around me all the time people like her who find glorious relationships on these dating sites.
I think it's the mindset, isn't it? It's just your mindset. It's if you say you're invisible, you are invisible. If you say that you're out there and you're dynamic and you're beautiful and you've got something to offer, then you have. And men notice that and they see that. So I think that's good advice. Hope she finds someone. but it's
a great woman.
David Wygant said, he said something like, "Don't keep waiting for your Prince Charming. He's lost his GPS." Which I thought was really funny. But, but there was something that you wrote. You wrote another book, and it was called 50 is the New 50. And I was really intrigued by that title because there is so much, speaking of younger men, that 50 is the new 30, that we should feel, we can do things at 50 that we want to do, in 30. Tell me what you meant by the title of that book, because that intrigued me.
Well, the title came out of exactly those kind of conversations where I would be talking about how great this time was for women and how we were exploring and discovering and all of that. And they'd say, "Oh, I get it. 50 is the new 30. And I want to tear my hair out because I have yet to meet a woman who is 50 who doesn't think her 50s are better than her 30s. Her body may have been a little better, but in terms of her soul, the 50s are so much better. And the 30s were so full of self-doubt and stress that the notion that being dynamic and beautiful and out there and all of that is equivalent to being younger is just wrong. This whole age obsession.
Well, that's actually was one of my next questions, which was there is such a societal bias around age, and there appears to be anyway. I mean, I think that's tearing down a little bit now, but I think that Cindy Joseph, who I know is a friend of yours, and I interviewed her for the show, and she was wonderful. I know she's promoting this pro-age revolution. And I think you were in San Francisco for that event. I think that goes back to the thing of being with women and getting that, that juice, that insight from them and the encouragement. So, but, talking about stereotypes, because I think a lot of the women in our community, they're global. A lot of women are living in countries that are maybe not as forward thinking. What would you say are the stereotypes that we need to break down, the last ones? Because I think we've broken through a lot. Thanks to people like you. What are the ones still left?
I think for one of the most radical things that we can still do is say our age.
Out loud.
because Gloria Steinem, who made famous the phrase, "This is what 40 looks like," when people said you don't look 40, is now about to turn 80 next spring. And if that's what 80 looks like, it's important for people to know that. And I saw it with my own mother, who was a gorgeous woman who always looked very young. And instead of saying, I am 80, she lived to be 94 and she was gorgeous at 94. But because she could get away with it, she said she was only 84. And when she went in the hospital, it was hard to find her records because she had kept revising her age down. And when she died, she was, according to those records, 14 years older than me.
But that was how women dealt with the question of age, though. That's
right. So what we think of as a 70-year-old is an old lady with blue hair and shopping bags, because anybody who could get away with pretending to be younger did so. So the idea of standing up and saying, I am 72, it's hard to say, but I've got to say it. The 70s are harder to say than the 60s.
I know, it's really, I'm so glad you're saying this, though, because I agree with you totally. And it was one of the motivating reasons that I started the 60andMe community, was that I'd hovered around 59 for several years. And, seriously, and because I worked in a corporate environment where it really, honestly, was not done. I mean, no one admitted that they were anywhere near 60. And when I finally admitted it, it was so amazing, because younger women came up to me and said, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that, because number one, you don't look 63, but I'm not afraid anymore. I can see what 63 looks like, and it's okay." And did you find that too, though?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that what you just described is such an important political act, because whatever we're doing, we're defining this life stage for them as well as for us. And I find young women come up to me all the time. My first book was called Inventing the Rest of Our Lives. And women would come up to me at book events and say, "I'm buying 2 copies, one for my mother and one for myself." And I was trying to figure out why they thought they would be interested. And I did figure it out. They want to know what it's going to be like, and whether the things that they have to put on the bottom of their priorities are ever going to be possible for them at another time in their lives. And it's very reassuring to see how many second chances are available to us at this stage of our lives. So we can only give them that gift if we identify the age as we reach it.
And it changed the whole, I don't know about you, when you have talked to younger women, but it changed the whole tone of our relationship as well. It just made it feel more honest and authentic, because people know, I mean, I have a son who's 33, they start calculating, well, you've got to be getting up there somewhere. But just that honesty, I think, well, in general, honesty is a great thing, but in that kind of a conversation, I think it was Oprah that made the comment about if you deny your age, you're actually denying your existence.
I saw that. What a great comment. Yeah.
I thought it was great, because it's true. It's like we just deny everything that we've learned. So one of the questions I asked the community a few months ago was, if you could give some advice to your 18-year-old self, what would it be? Got some great answers, but I'd love to know what your advice would have been to your 18-year-old Suzanne.
Oh, any version of don't be so frightened. Don't be so anxious to please. Get to know yourself. I just feel like that 18-year-old person was a lost soul in a way. I feel sad that was such a alienated time. And actually, I was on a panel a while ago, and one of the questions they asked all the panelists was, "What's your biggest regret?" And I was sitting there thinking, and I suddenly realized my biggest regret is not having big regrets, because I didn't put myself out there. I didn't take chances. I didn't go for it. And I have a daughter, she's 27. She's my role model. That's all I can say. She goes for it. She puts herself out there. She says she knows what she wants from the world. And if the world doesn't give it to her, she doesn't take it personally. She just goes on to the next thing. So that's very reassuring.
Well, you've actually obviously raised her in a way that enabled her to feel that confidence. And really for the community, I'd like to ask you, I've got 33,000 60-year-old women out there. Many of them have the same fears that our 18-year-old selves had. I think that sort of cycles around. What not advice, but what is your message for them? What would you say to them to give them perspective on reinvention?
First thing is you've got to have a posse. You have got to get serious about your friendships and really invest in the ones that are nurturing and that matter, and do the hard work of getting rid of the toxic ones, or the ones that aren't giving you energy.
That aren't nurturing.
It's got to start there. And then once you have this posse watching your back, it's so much easier to be brave and to try new things and to look at the world as a place where there are lots of possibilities.
And read your book. It's a great book. I mean, I just learned so much from it, and it validated. I mean, one of the things that I deal with personally is that I live away from most of my friends now. I left the United States and I'm living in Europe. And I don't have any physical connections with people. So I think that's, you've got to do the best you can. A lot of times we are separate, and you can't let yourself be isolated. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
By the way, I love your passion. It's great. Is that, you've got to go for it. And no one's judging. No one really cares.
No one really cares.
You just go for it.
Absolutely.
Well, look,
He's looking.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed chatting with you. I'm going to make sure we list all of the books that you have written, and you've written many. Your website, Suzanne Braun Levine, I would highly recommend. You write for the Huffington Post, or you write for lots of people. We'll find you, and I'd love to have you back sometime and just catch up and keep this conversation going.
Well, you're a real girlfriend.
Thank you. You're in my posse, and I'm really proud that you're here, and I really thank you for the time today. Thanks a lot, Suzanne.
I loved it. Thank you.
Take care.